Miracle 16. God at the Bus Stop. I am sure that skeptics will have a lot of fun making sport of this story and a couple more like it that follow. Those who have experienced the miracle walk, on the other hand, will see added confirmation that God is at work in the tiniest, most insignificant details of our lives. To some, it may seem extremely arrogant to believe that God would care about the tiny details of one life among the 7 billion now on the planet. I understand, but arrogance doesn't drive these stories. Biblical teaching and personal experience do. Let me explain. Charles Haddon Spurgeon, 1834 to 1892, was England's best-known preacher for most of the second half of the 19th century. He was once asked by a woman in his parish, "Dr. Spurgeon, do you think God is interested in the little things in our lives?" In his inimitable bombastic style, Spurgeon replied, "Lady, do you think anything is big to God?" Omniscience and omnipotence have ways of eliminating the distinctions between large and small, complex and simple, important and insignificant, especially in the presence of love. When infinite unconditional love operates, nothing is too small to be a matter of attention in the life of the beloved. A case in point. My beloved wife's cut finger would be as much a cause of my care and concern as if she contracted cancer, not because finger cuts and cancer are in any way on the same level of seriousness, but because of the love that motivates the care. So I tell this story in the category of the miraculous, and a couple more like it, with no apology at all. Some of the most precious experiences of my life are those in which God has touched me in some minuscule detail of my life, something so dinky as to not think it worth bothering the God of the universe. I'm sure the great Hebrew prophet was dazzled when the Master of the universe responded to his prayers to bring down fire from heaven on a pagan sacrifice, or to stop the heavens for 3 years so it didn't rain. But I can't imagine Elijah was ever more touched by God's love and care than when God flew in lunch by ravens when he was alone and despondent, running for his life in the desert. 1 Kings 17, 5-6. The story. My associate, Buster, and I were working New York City, and he was handling the appointment setup and execution. We met early in the hotel lobby to go to breakfast with the VP of a cable television network in a different part of Manhattan from where we were staying. We decided that a subway would be quicker and cheaper than a taxi, considering the distance and the time allotted. It was rush hour on the New York subway system, and the press of bodies on the train cars and platforms made sardine cans look like rural Texas highways. Buster and I jammed into a car on a southbound train and held our breath as the standing-room-only crowd jostled and swayed through the subway tunnels. At one stop Buster thought was ours, he got off the train car and then quickly realized that he was mistaken about the stop. Gentleman that he is, he allowed the herd of New Yorkers to push into the car before he did, and the door closed between us. The image of him on the other side of the glass door as the train pulled from the station is forever etched in my memory. It was one thing to be separated from my associate, but the awareness struck me quickly that I knew the name of the man we were meeting and the time of the appointment, but I had no clue about the name and address of the hotel. I didn't have any idea what subway stop, what street, or even what area I was supposed to be visiting, and the train was taking me rapidly somewhere. What I lacked in direction I sensed I was making up for in speed. It occurred to me that I should get off the train before I ended up in New Jersey, so I disembarked at the next station, walked up the stairs to the street, and stood there dumbfounded. Then it occurred to me that I needed some divine help. I'm a little slow at things like this. I prayed, "Dear God, I need your guidance. I have no idea where I'm supposed to go, and I need you to show me." I had never been to the hotel where the breakfast was scheduled and couldn't recall its name. I thought I might recognize the name if I saw it written or heard it, because Buster had mentioned the hotel in conversations about the schedule. Right where I stood there was a tiny store selling tobacco, candy, newspapers, magazines, and the strange assortment of things found only in these tiny New York establishments. I asked the clerk if I could borrow his New York Yellow Pages directory, and he looked at me strangely. He dug it out of a pile of huge directories on a lower shelf behind him and handed it to me. I opened the directory to hotels. I was instantly struck with the idiocy of my idea. Do you have any idea how many hotels there are in the New York Yellow Pages? A huge section of fine print listed them all. There was no way under the sun I was going to find a single hotel in that gargantuan list. I handed the huge volume back to the clerk with thanks, stepped back onto the sidewalk, and walked slowly away from the store. "Well, Lord," I prayed, "you're going to have to bail me out of this one." I chuckled to myself at the thought of my predicament and the notion that the God of the universe would entertain such a request and actually extricate me. I walked toward the end of the block. There was a bus-stop shelter there, the ones with huge advertising posters behind glass. There, right in front of me, was a huge poster announcing a change of name. The poster read, "The Hotel Macalo is now the Millennium Broadway, 145 West 44th Street, New York, New York." "That's the hotel!" I exclaimed. I grabbed a cab, headed for the breakfast, and arrived within 5 minutes of the appointed time. Buster and I were in Manhattan for another week, and neither of us ever saw another one of those posters. I'm not going to suggest that the miracle includes God creating just one and placing it in a city of 8 million people on the only corner bus shelter where I was walking at the precise moment I needed its information. But neither am I willing to ascribe the incident to mere chance, especially when it happened in direct answer to a specific prayer. You decide.